Hey everyone, this is Marcus Ng. Welcome to a new, highly requested series on my channel called Apps from Scratch, where I show you how to build apps from the ground up. In today's video, we're going to be building out the UI of this awesome chat app I found on Dribbble. I chose it because it has a unique design and looks like a lot of fun to build. It also has a variety of widgets that are great for Flutter developers to learn how to create. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and let's get started. Before we start coding, let's walk through the file structure of our project. I created a folder called models inside our lib directory that contains two files called messageModel.dart and userModel.dart. Chat apps usually consist of users and messages, so our first model is a user model because we need to have a way to identify the users who send messages. And the user class has an integer ID, a string name, and a string image URL. And if we go to our message model, we can see that our messages consist of a sender, which is of type user, a time, which is of type string, but usually it would be of type datetime or Firebase timestamp in production apps, depending on how you code it. But we're going to make it a string to make it easier to code the UI. And then string text, which is the contents of the message, a boolean for isLike, and a boolean for unread. Because inside the UI of the app, we're able to like messages and also see which chats are unread. Down here I created a current user, which is us, and we have the ID of 0, the name current user, and then our image URL is assets, images, and then I just chose one of the images here, so greg.jpg. And I got all these images from a site called randomuser.me, which I'll link in the description so you guys can download the images there too. Back in our message model, I also created the other users, so Greg, James, John, Olivia, Sam, Sophia, and Steven, and we all have different integer IDs. And then I made a list of favorite contacts and inputted 5 different users that we just created above. And we can see these users would be in our favorite contact section. And then beneath this is our recent chats. So the chats that show up here, these are just examples of what a recent chat message would look like. And then below this, we have our example messages in the chat screen. And we're going to be using the same example messages for the chat screen because we're focusing on the UI, and this streamlines the process of creating the application. And if we go to our pubspec.yaml file, all I changed was the part here about assets. So I uncommented assets, and then uncommented this, and just made it assets/images/. And that allows us to import the images directory inside assets here. So we can use all these images in our app. And now if we go to our main.dart file, I added a home screen, which is a stateful widget that contains a scaffold. Now let's edit the theme of our app. So let's change primary swatch to primary color. And we're going to make the color red. And then we're also going to have an accent color, which is going to be color, and then 0xFFFEF9EB. And that's this color over here, like a very light yellow color. And we'll change the title of the app to Flutter Chat UI. And then to get rid of the debug banner in the top right, we can just add debug show check banner and set that to false. Now let's take a look at our app. We can see that we have an app bar up here, and then we have a selection widget here. Down here we have a container that contains a widget that has favorite contacts. And down here we have another container with each of these have rounded corners. And inside here we have list tiles. So here's a list view, this is also a list view, and this is a list view. So let's start by first building out the app bar. So we're going to say app bar, title, we'll make that a text widget, chats. Hit save. Let's increase the font size by adding a style, text style, font size, and we'll make it 28. And we'll add some font weight.bold. And now let's add a leading button. And instead of making it this back arrow, let's actually just make it a menu button. And then we can change the icon size by doing icon size 30.0. Let's change the color to white. And then to update the color, we have to add the onPressed function. And hit save. And down here, we can see that we have some elevation. And if we look at our chat UI, there's no elevation on the app bar here. It's all seamless. And we can get rid of the elevation by accessing the elevation property of the app bar and set that to 0.0. Now let's add the action widgets, which is the right side of the app bar. And we can just copy in the icon button we wrote up here. Hit save, and we have the menu there. But let's change the icon menu to a search icon. And that's our app bar done. Looking at this image, I can see that this is a column widget here. So we can start by just making a column widget inside our body. We can say column, children. And then to make this category selector, we need to create a container first and specify a height. So we can say height 90. And we'll add a color so it's easier for us to see. And right here, that's going to be our category selector. Next up, we need to create a list view. And we need to write the different categories we're going to have. So let's actually extract this widget here and make a new widget called category selector. So I'm going to cut this and then write category selector. And then inside our libs folder, I'm going to make a new folder called widgets. And inside widgets, I'm going to make category_selector.dart. Here I'm going to make a stateful widget because we need to maintain state inside this widget. So category selector. I'm going to hover over this to import material.dart. And then replace container with our container. And hit save, go back to home screen and import the category selector. And we see that it still appears here. So now, when we need to maintain state, we need to create a variable inside our category selector state called selectedIndex. And we'll just set that to 0. So int selectedIndex equals 0. And then we need to make a list of our categories. So final list string categories is equal to messages, online groups, and the last one we can make it requests. And hit save. And now inside our container, we can make a child list view builder. And our list view builder is going to have an item count and an item builder. The item count is equal to the categories.length, and categories is the categories we just created. And we're going to return, for now, let's just return the text widgets. So categories, and then index, and we'll see what shows up. And we can see that in our simulator, we have messages, online, groups, and requests. So that's working correctly, but we want it to scroll horizontally, just like in the photo. So we'll go back to our list view builder and change the scroll direction to axis.horizontal. And hit save. And now they lined up horizontally. Next, let's add some padding to our text widgets. So we can hit Command period on Mac and click padding. And then our padding, we're going to make it edge insets. That's symmetric. horizontal, we'll make it 20 pixels, and vertically, we'll make it 30. And hit save. And now they're spaced out pretty well, and we can see that messages is aligned with the menu bar because we made it 20 pixels from the left and the right. And let's style our categories index. So style, text style. Let's start with color. For now, we'll just make it colors.white. Font size 24.0. Font weight, we'll make that bold. And then let's add some letter spacing. Let's try 1.5. Well, that's a bit too far, so we can do 1.2. And that looks pretty good. And if we look back at the UI photo, we can see that the selected index has a different color than all of our unselected indexes. So if we go to our color property here, we can check if the index, which is being passed in from our item builder, is equal to our selected index. And if it is, then we'll have colors.white. And if not, we'll use colors.white 60. And hit save. And now we can see that the selected index is white, and the other ones are a little lighter. So if we click, it doesn't change because we need to add the onTap method to our text widgets. And we can do this by hovering over padding, wrapping it with a new widget called a gesture detector, and then adding the onTap method. And inside we'll say set state, selected index is equal to index. And now if we hit save and click around, we can see that the category is changing. And we're maintaining state because this is a stateful widget. And last but not least, let's change the color of this container to red. And because we set the primary color of our app to red, we can just do theme.ofContext.primaryColor and hit save. And now it's red. So we're all done with our category selector, so let's go back to our home screen. Next up, let's work on getting this container here with the rounded top left and top right edges, and it's going to expand to the bottom of the screen. So we want to make a container with a decoration of box decoration. The color, that's going to be theme.ofContext.accentColor, which is what we set before, and that's the lightish yellow color. And then let's just add a height property for now before we add expanded so we can see it. Let's make it 500. And in the simulator we can see the light yellow color here, and down here it's white because the container is not expanding all the way to the bottom right now. So inside our box decoration, let's continue, and we can edit the borders by going to border radius .only. The top left will be radius.circular 30.0, and then the top right will be radius.circular 30.0. Hit save, and we can see that there's a slight curve on the top left and top right corners. And now to make the container expand to the bottom of our chat app, let's remove the height, and then all we have to do is wrap our container new widget and make it expanded. And now we can see that it expands to the whole entire height of our app. But the corners here, when they're rounded, we can see that there's white, and inside the app, we see that the corners are red here. So all we have to do is go to our scaffold, change the background color to theme.ofContext.primaryColor, and hit save. And now we can clearly see the rounded corners. Next up, let's start building our favorite contacts widget. So we don't need to make a background for this, as it's going to be sitting on top of our light yellow background here. What we need to make is a column widget, and then inside that column widget there's going to be a row for favorite contacts and this horizontal icon. And then the bottom portion of the column would be a horizontal list view containing columns of a circle avatar and a text widget. So now let's make a child of our container, and we're going to make the column first. Column children, and then our row. So our row is going to contain the text widget favorite contacts, and then the horizontal more icon. And we need to add onPress to this button. Hit save, and now we have the beginning of our favorite contacts widget. And before we go any further, let's actually cut this out, and we'll put this into its own widget called a favorite contacts.dart. We'll make a new widget inside widgets called favorite contacts.dart. And this can be a stateless widget because we don't need to keep state at all. So favorite contacts. Remember to import material and then just paste in the row we cut out. Now if we hit save, we need to just type in favorite contacts here and import it. And now it reappeared. So now we're going to be working in favorite contacts.dart. Let's start styling our text widget here. So as usual, text style, color, colors.blue-gray. Make the font size 18.0, and the font weight will be bold. And we'll add letter spacing 1.0. The icon button, that's going to have an icon size of 30.0. And the colors will be blue-gray, just like the text widget. And then for our row widget, to make the favorite contacts and the horizontal button stay on both sides, we need to access the row property, main axis alignment dot space between, and that's going to separate them. Next, let's create a padding widget around our row. And this one is going to be symmetric, horizontal 20.0. And we'll deal with vertical in a second, because we need to wrap the padding widget here in a column, since we're creating the row here, and then the list view underneath. So now the second part of our column, we need to specify a height for our container. So we'll set the height to 120. And we'll set the color to blue so it's easier to see. And the child will be a list view builder. The item count is going to be favorites.length. And favorites we get from our message model, which is inside our message model.dart, where I just defined all the data that we're going to use. So it's our list of users: Sam, Stephen, Olivia, John, and Greg. Back in our favorite contacts, we're going to first make the text widget, so favorites index, and then dot name. And we see all the names here. We need to change the scroll direction, axis.horizontal, and then let's add padding to the list view builder. So edge insets.only, left 10.0. And that makes it so when we scroll, there's a little bit of padding here. Now let's build the circle avatar with the text underneath. So wrap the text widget in a column widget. We're going to make a circle avatar with a radius of 35.0. And then the background image is going to be an asset image favorites index, which is the user, and then image URL. Hit save, and now we get all the favorite users. And then we want to add some space between the circle avatar and the text here, so we can just throw in a sized box with a height of 6.0. And let's style the text. So text style, color, colors.blue-gray. Font size will be 16.0. And then font weight. Let's make that W600, so semi-bold. I hit save. And we can get rid of the blue color here. Now let's add some padding between each of the users. So let's wrap our column in a padding widget. And we can do edge insets.all 8. Let's make it 10. And we can scroll. And now to add some more padding to the whole entire column widget, because we want to push this down since favorite contacts and the horizontal icon is way too close to the top. We can just wrap the column with edge insets, symmetric, vertical 10.0, and that's looking pretty good. The reason we put the horizontal padding for the row widget instead of putting the horizontal padding up here is because if we had the horizontal padding inside the top level, so let me just show you guys. We'll set that to 20. When you try to scroll this list view, this gets cut off on the side, and we don't want that to happen. We want it to actually scroll all the way through the screen. And that's why we don't have the horizontal padding there, but instead we put our padding inside our list view builder, where we say padding edge insets only left 10.0. And that's why the users are able to scroll from each side of the screen without getting cut off by the container. And let's just add back our 20.0 padding there. And our favorite contact is looking good. So we're all done in the favorite contacts.dart file for now. Let's go back to our home screen. And let's take a look at the chat UI again. So from this image, we can see that we have a container here, a white container with the same rounded top left and top right edges. And then inside of this is a list view that contains list tiles. But in our case, we're going to be creating our own list tiles since we'll be able to do more customization. Since we also need to have a new text label here. And then we can see that there's a light red here, and it's stuck against the left side of the screen. And these have rounded corners here. Okay, so let's start by making that. So as usual, we'll make the container. We'll give it an arbitrary height for now so we can see it. Color, colors.blue. Now let's make the decoration, and we can just copy this up here. So copy the whole box decoration, paste that in, and we'll change the theme.ofContext accent color to just colors.white. And we can see the rounded corners there. Now to make it expand all the way to the bottom, all we have to do is throw the expanded widget on this. Expanded, get rid of the height, save, and now it expands all the way to the bottom. Next, let's make our list view builder here. So inside our container, we have a child, list view builder, item count. This time it's going to be chats.length, and we'll import chats from our message model. And then we'll just return text chats dot or chats index.sender.name. And we have the names here. Now, just like before, let's cut this out. And we're going to be making a recent chats widget. So inside widgets, we'll make a new file called recent chats.dart. That's going to be stateless. Recent chats. Import material.dart. And then we can remove this container and just paste in what we just wrote. And make sure you guys import the chats here. So import message model. Hit save. And then back in home screen, we need to import recent chats. And we can remove the message model.dart package from this page. Now let's start by just building out our basic recent chat tile. We can see that this consists of a row widget, and inside the row widget we have the circle avatar. Then we have a column widget, which contains two text widgets, and then another column widget, which contains a text widget for the time, and then in some cases will contain a text widget that says new. So let's wrap our text widget in a row. And instead of writing chats index all the time, let's instead make a variable that's final. We'll make it called chat equals chats index. And that's just type message. And now we can say chat.sender.name. Let's make our circle avatar. So circle avatar radius 35.0. And the background image will be chat, or will be asset image chat.sender.image URL. Let's hit save. And now we have our images appearing. Our chat.sender.name, that's going to be in a column widget. And the other piece of that is chat.sender, or chat.text. And then hit save there. And then to make this left justified, all we have to do is access our column widget. Inside we need to go to cross-axis alignment, cross-axis-alignment.start, and that'll align it to the left. Taking a look at our chat UI again, and what we're actually going to do is wrap this circle avatar and this column widget in a row widget here, and then wrap everything in another row widget, and I'll show you guys why in a second. So let's first go to our row widget and just wrap it in a row. And now in our second row, we can make the column that has children, text, chat.time, and the other piece of text is going to say new. So the reason we do this is because if this piece of text here is shortened, then let's say everything is still wrapped in one row widget. By shortening this piece of text here, the 5:30 p.m. and new would actually be bound to this row widget and come over here. But by putting in two separate row widgets, we can use the property inside outer row widget, main axis alignment dot space between, and it'll push it away. So that way, no matter how big or how long this piece of text is, this 5:30, the timestamp and the new will always stay right aligned, just like we want it. And just to show you guys again, if we comment that out, the 5:30 p.m. and new, it's bound to the first row widget, but by adding that in, we push it out. So let's start styling our custom list tile. Let's take a look at our chat UI again. We see that this is a lighter gray, that looks like a blue gray. This is also blue grayish or light, and then we have the container for new. So chat.sender.name text style color, make that colors.gray, font size 15.0, and the font weight on that's going to be bold. Hit save. Then let's add a similar style to the chat.txt here. Hit save on that. We'll change the color to blue-gray. And the font weight looks a bit too bold, so let's make that W600. Next, let's add some overflow to this text so it gets cut off. So we can do overflow text overflow dot ellipsis. And it's not being cut off right now because we need to specify a width for this content. So we can wrap the text widget in a container and then just add a width here. So we can just do media query .of context .size .width and multiply it by 0.45. And now we can see that the text is now overflowing. We can add a sized box here, height 5.0, and then up here let's add another size box with height 10.0. No, not height, width. Because we want the size box to be between our circle avatar and our column. So we're adding a width here. Now when we try to scroll up, we can see that we have rounded corners on the top left and top right. But when we scroll up, the text actually doesn't get clipped off. And an easy fix to this is by wrapping our list view builder in a new widget called clip or rect. And then we're just adding border radius only top left and top right. Now if we save that and then we scroll, we can see the text and the images on the left and right get cut off accordingly. Now looking at our image, let's make these containers here. So we need to wrap our tiles in a container and then add margin to the right side. So let's wrap the row in a container. And this container is going to have margin, edge insets.only, top 5.0, bottom 5.0, and we'll make the right 20 pixels. And hit save. And that's looking pretty good. Now let's add some padding to the container. Edge insets dot symmetric, horizontal 20.0 and vertical 10.0. And now all the photos are aligned with each other because they're all 20 pixels from the left. And now to change the color, we can go into the decoration of our container. Box decoration. We'll add the color 0xFF FFEFE. Hit save. And now they're all the unread message color. We can change that by, well, let's first deal with the border radius. So border radius.only, top right. That's radius.circular, and we'll use 20.0. And the bottom right's the same thing, but just change the top to bottom. Now to fix the chat color, all we have to do is access our chat message and check if it's unread. So .unread. If it is, then we're going to be using the unread color that we just made. And then otherwise it's colors.white. And now we can clearly see which chat messages are unread based on their color. So let's go back to styling our tiles. So now chat time, style, text style, color, colors.gray, font size 15.0, and we'll make it font weight .bold. And then for new. So first let's wrap it in a container. And this container widget is going to have a width of 40 and a height of 20. And then because the chat UI here, the new is rounded corners, the container has rounded corners, we need to make decoration, box decoration, border radius dot circular 30.0. And then we'll add color so we can see it. So color theme.of context.primary color, and that's red. Now to center align the text, we can access the alignment property and then just use alignment.center. And now our new text is centered inside our container, and we can change the text style here. So colors.white, make the font size 12.0, and then we can change the font weight to bold. And that's looking really good. And we need to add some spacing between the time and the new label. So size box, height 5.0, and that should do the trick. And then to get rid of the new label on regular chats that have already been read, we can just add a ternary operator here. So chat.unread, question mark, and then we can just put text, empty text box. So this is checking if the chat's unread. If it's unread, then we display the label. If not, then we just have an empty text box. And you may be wondering if we can use a size box widget here and just use the shrink property. But in this case, if we do that, then the time shifts down to the middle. So depending on what you want, if you want to have it all uniform aligned to the top, you can use the text, empty text widget, and it'll shift it up. And if not, you can just use the size box.shrink. But we're going to use the empty text widget to keep it all uniform. So now if we compare this to our chat UI here, it's looking pretty good. Pretty spot on. So now we're ready to move on to our chat screen. Now let's make a new screen in our screens folder called chats, or chat screen.dart. That'll be a stateful widget called chat screen, and import material.dart. We will return a scaffold, and our chat screen is going to take in a final user called user. This dot user. Now if you're building an actual production application where you had chat rooms and stuff, user, instead of passing in the user, you'd most likely pass in your chat room ID, and then based on your chat room ID, you'd populate the messages. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to pass in the user so we can change the app bar title to the user's name that we're chatting with. So if we go back to recent chats, we're going to wrap our container in a new widget called gesture detector. And then on tap, we're going to make that navigate. So navigator.push context route, material page route, builder, chat screen. And we need to import chat screen. And we'll pass in user chat.sender. And again, normally you'd pass in the chat room ID, but we're just going to pass in the chat.sender to make the UI easier to build. So now if we click James, it brings us to the new screen. Same thing with clicking any of these tiles. And let's also implement the segue for the favorite contacts. So clicking on these, we want to segue to the chat too. So let's just copy the onTap function here, go to our favorite contacts widget, and then wrap our padding here, wrap with new widget, gesture detector, and then paste our onTap there. And remember to import everything. And the user in this case would just be favorites index. Now if we hit save and click, these also segue. And now we're ready to work in our chat screen. So let's take a look at our chat screen again. We have an app bar up here with the name of the user we're chatting with, and then a icon for the More button horizontal. And then instead of putting notifications here, we're just going to use a back button, because putting notifications here doesn't really make sense since you need to know to go back. So now app bar. App bar. Title. That's going to be widget.user.name. And wrap that in a text widget. Okay, and then John appears. Let's go back to our home screen and just grab one of these. Let's just grab the action section here and paste that in here. Then we have our search icon. Change that to the more horizontal. And then back in our home screen, let's grab the styling for our title. And that's looking pretty good. So looking at this, we have the background as a red background, and then we're putting the container on top, just like we did in this screen, and then making it white. And then at the bottom, we're going to have our text field to send messages. And let's get rid of the elevation on the app bar really quick. So elevation equals 0.0. And then the scaffold, the background color, that's going to be theme.ofContext.primary color. And hit save. So now let's add the container here. So we're going to go body, container, decoration, box decoration, color, colors.white, border radius.only, and we're going to do top left and top right. So radius.circular 30.0, and then top right, that's going to be radius.circular 30.02. And looking at this, we have another child widget inside the container, and that's going to be a column. So the first part of the column is going to be a list view where we can scroll up and down for messages, and the second part is going to be the composer to send messages. So let's make a child column. That's going to have widget children. Let's make our list view builder. So list view builder, it's going to have item count messages dot length. We need to import message model here. And then for text now, we can just say messages index dot text. And hit save. That should be appearing. Oh, but it's not appearing because we put our list view builder inside the column, and we need to specify the height of the list view builder. So let's actually remove our column widget here, and then wrap the container in a column widget. Hit save, and then we can wrap this in expanded because we want it to reach the bottom. And now our text shows up. And then to fix the text clipping off the side, just like we did before, we can go to the list view builder, wrap that with a new widget, clip our rect, and then just copy this. Let's hit save there. And we see that the text stops clipping, or not clipping, so now it's getting clipped, and it's not showing off the side now. Let's add some padding to our list view builder. So padding edge insets.only top 15.0. Save that. And then say final message is equal to messages index. And then instead of doing return text in the message text, let's actually write a function called build message. And that's going to take in the message and also take in a boolean called isMe. And we'll write bool isMe equals message dot sender dot id. And we're checking if the message dot sender dot id is equal to the current user dot id. And if you guys recall, inside our message model, we define our current user, which is us, with the ID of 0, and then we're chatting with all these people with different IDs. So all of these messages here, we're saying are from James, and James has an ID of 2, which is not equal to 0. So that's how we're going to differentiate which messages show up on the side and have a like button, and then our messages showing up on the right side. Now let's go back to our chat screen. And then we can write our build message function. Build message, and bool isMe. And we'll start this off by returning a container. Child for now, we can just say message dot text. Hit save on that. And then for the container, we'll just change the color to the color of the other user for now. So color 0x. If we go back to our recent chats, we can just copy that from here. Now the color changed. And let's start by adding some margin to split them up. So margins dot only top 8.0, bottom 8.0, and then left, that's going to be 80.0. And that's how it should look like for us, because on this side, these are our messages, and we show up on the right side. So to add the other user's messages on the left, we can say isMe, and if it's not me, then we're going to say edge insets.only, top is 8.0, bottom 8.0, and then the right side will be 80.0 to keep it consistent. And then hit save. Now we see our messages are split up. So now isMe, and then for here we're going to say theme.of.context, and then we're going to choose the accent color, else we use the color of red. Now let's add some padding. So padding, edge insets, dot symmetric, horizontal 25.0, and vertical 15.0. That looks like good spacing. Now if we make the box decorations, because we want rounded corners for the other user on the top right and bottom right, and then we want top left and bottom left for us. So decoration, box decoration, border radius, and you guys should be masters at this by now. So border radius dot only top left radius dot circular 15.0, and then bottom left radius dot circular 15.0, and hit save. We need to bring the color down into the decoration, and we see that the top left and bottom left corners are rounded now, but we want to split that up based on is me. So if it is me, then we want the top left and bottom left corners rounded. Otherwise, we want the top right and the bottom right corners rounded. So we'll just change these two lefts to rights. Hit save. And now our corners are rounded correctly. Looking back at the chat app, we see that we need a column, and then we have a text widget up here, and then the text widget we already made. So the child, that's going to be a column text message dot time. Hit save. And then to make it left justified, we just access cross-axis alignment dot start. Let's add some spacing between this. So size box height, do 5.0. We can go for 8.0. Now let's add some styling to the text. So style, text style, color, colors.blue-gray, font size 16.0, font weight.w 600. Then hit save. Now let's copy the style here and put it on the message.text. And that looks good. Now you might have noticed that the chat messages are out of order. We have it going from 2 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. And the way you fix this is by adding reverse and true. And what this also does is it's going to reverse the messages and then stick them to the bottom of the screen. So now it's reversed, and just like a normal chat app, our messages are at the bottom. And then when we click the keyboard later on, or click the text field and the keyboard pops up, the list view is going to rise with us. So then no messages get blocked by the keyboard. And that's what reverse lets us do. So make sure you guys include this, that's really important. Now let's add the heart icon for hearting the other person's messages. And it looks like it's a row widget. So we have the first part of the row, which is the container, and then the second part is the heart. So going back up to our build message function, let's wrap our container widget in a row. Hit save. And we're getting some margin errors there. It's going off the screen. But let's just add our icon button first. So let's copy this icon button. And let's put it right after the container. And hit save. So right now the icon button's off the screen. And the way we can fix this is by actually adding a width to our container here. So we can say width media query.of context.size.width times 0.75. And then we need to get rid of the margin on the other person's messages, because right now we have a margin of 80 to the right. So let's remove this here. Hit save. And if we take another look at our icon button, the color is white. So let's change that to black. And we see that the icon's there. So first let's deal with the icon colors and shapes. So if the message.isLiked, then we want to show the icons.favorite. Otherwise we just show the border. And then we want the color to be is liked. So if the color is liked, then we want to use theme.of context.primary color. Otherwise, we're just going to use colors.blue-gray. And hit save. And that looks good. Now, for our messages, the reason we're getting this error here is because the icon button is showing up for our messages when it shouldn't be showing up there. So all we have to do is me, and then check if it's not me. And then if it's not me, then we can return a sized box.shrink. And then hit save. But now by doing that, size box.shrink, even though it's a shrunken size box, we get this little gap here. And we can see that it is from the size box as if we had a text widget and just type like one character and hit save. The text widget shows up right here. So the way around this is actually to not use a ternary operator right here. Instead, we're going to take our whole entire container widget here, cut it out. Outside of our return, let's make final container message, and then set it equal to our whole entire container widget. And then right above return row, we're going to check if the message is from me. And if it's from me, then we just return the message. And that's the whole container here. And hit save. And then for the row widget right here, if it's not us, then we need to return the message, and then the icon button. And now we have the other person's message with the like button, and we have our message, and there's no gap here, since we're not even touching this icon button if it's our message. And yeah, so we're pretty much done with our chat screen, except the last part of it is to add our message composer down here. So let's do that now. Let's scroll down to our build message here. And then underneath our expanded widget, because we wrapped it in a column, let's add a function called build message composer. Then going back up here, right, build message composer. And hit save. We need to return something. So for now, we'll just return a text widget. Say hello. And we see that it shows up down there. So if we take a look at our chat app again, we see that we pretty much nailed the chat UI here with the heart and the liking. And then down here we want to make a text field. So we're not going to make it exactly like this, but we'll make it similar. So first we're going to return a container, padding, edge insets.symmetric, horizontal 8.0. We'll make the height of it 70, colors.white. And then the child of this is going to be a row. Inside the row, we want to have an icon button. So let's just write a new one. So icon button, icons.photo. Icon size, we'll make it 25.0. The color will be theme.of context.primary color. And our onPressed. And now we have our photo icon showing there. And then on the other side, we also want an icon button to send. So let's just copy that. And then icon send. And now they're showing up next to each other. But in between these two icons, we want to add a text field widget that we can type into. So expanded text field, child text field, decoration, input decoration, or say hint message or hint text, send a message. Let's hit save. And we can see that we have a text field now. And I don't actually like having this red line here. So to get rid of that red line, we can just do input decoration dot collapsed and hit save. And that makes the red line disappear. And then to auto capitalize the message when you start typing, because right now, if we click and we type, it's lowercase. All we have to do is go under text field, add text capitalization, and then text capitalization dot sentences. And that'll capitalize the first word, or first character of the first word. Then we can have onChanged, and then inside onChanged, that's going to be the string value. So in this case, if you're building out the chat app, you'd have a variable that's called message, and you just update the variable in like set state or something. Or not even set state, you can just say message equals value. So let's erase this. Now if we click the message here, we see the keyboard comes up, our text is capitalized, we have the photo icon here, the send icon there, and none of the messages here were blocked because it was raised. And the last thing we have to do is make it so when you tap the screen, the keyboard drops down, because it doesn't really make sense for us to hit done every single time. And that's very simple to fix. All I have to do is wrap our column widget, the new widget, and then use a gesture detector on tap, focus scope dot of context dot unfocus. Let's hit save on that. And now if we click, we can click anywhere here and it'll minimize the keyboard. And our chat screen's looking pretty good. So if we go back, we have our whole chat app here. We can click the stateful widget here to change it. Click any of these messages, and it brings us to the chat screen. And then we have our nice border radiuses on all of our different containers. And it looks great. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to leave a like on the video, subscribe to my channel, and to start the repository on GitHub. If you guys are interested in actually building out this entire chat app, you guys should check out my Flutter Firebase Instagram series, which I'll also put in the description of this video. And throughout that series, you're going to be learning how to use Firebase, how to create users, create accounts, and then based on what you learn there, you'd be able to build your own chat app. And you can even use this UI if you wanted to. Let me know if you guys like this kind of video, and if you have any app suggestions for me to build, leave it down in the comments below, or contact me on Twitter, and I'll see you guys in the next one.